So let's go around. Favorite poems this week and briefly why, starting with Lily, followed by Erica.
I'm gonna go with Not a Cage, Joan Retallack.
Not a cage. Okay,
I know
why?
will be a popular answer, but I just I love the poem itself, and I love how it works together with the chance operation. I think it's so relatable to have a stack of books that you're not exactly reading, but like in the conventional cover to cover sense, let's say, but you are working through or moving through in some way by taking first lines as in the poem. So um, I just love the possibility that that opens for writing and for relating to your books, like books on your shelf, but maybe you didn't have time to read them all today.
Right.
I would second Not a Cage for similar reasons and add that I would also highly recommend the excerpt, The Poetical Wager by Joan Retallack, that's in ModPo Plus, which is a chapter from a full book with the same title that is extraordinary in the way that I think it offers a lens through which to think about the importance of aleatory and chance and procedural poetries as far as reorienting the ways that our geometries of attention might point on any given day.
I really was grooving on a feathered likeness of the Justice Chair. I've been just on my own reading a lot of Stein since we did Stein and feeling like it's a kind of beautiful collaboration between me and McClough and Stein.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, just beautiful phrases.
I think today mine has got to be Dropping Leaflets. I think for the day after Election Day. And I love the epigraph of that poem, helped me come up with a strategy to get through this white noise and to think about this as a poem that's 20 years old. That epigraph is from November 2001. And to think about a degree of white noise 20 years ago and degree of white noise now. And also to think about Week 9 and aleatory and chance operations as being strategic, as being a strategy for dealing with more language than it is possible to be attentive to. And that the poem, both Osmond's poem and the Week 9 poems generally, might offer a strategy for being with language when language seems so overwhelming as to be non-specific, but desperately needs to be specific to pay attention to the work it does in the world.
I'm going to say Jackson McClow's A Feather Likeness of the Justice Chair, because Jackson McClow creates this permission and invitation to make your own system, and he does it over and over with this brilliance and benevolence. And because he said he became a pacifist anarchist in grammar school.
I'm going to go with McClow's vocabulary for Peter Innisfree Moore for its performance element. Not only does the writing scramble ready-made meanings of language structures, but it disables the communicative function of language. And the performance becomes almost like theater of the absurd, where speaking bodies in real time struggle to mean and communicate, almost like in a Ionesco play.
I'm going to join Lily and Erica in plugging Joan Retallack's poem, but I want to specifically give a shout out to the audio version that's available on ModPo website. I found the piece a little inaccessible at first, but the audio in it, she gives like a brief snippet of her, to use Gabby's phrase, of her plan for this poem, and then that changes the practice of attention, of listening as you get through the piece. Like it's just like it becomes immediately fun. Like as you listen and watch, it's really nice to have that.
Loving Jason's Making Butter this week.
Why? What's so fun about that?
Well, first of all, I think it may very well be the funniest poem in anywhere. But I'm seeing some, I don't know, there are a lot of good, I guess, contenders for that. But I also just love how as you progress through the poem, you kind of realize that the process of making butter is both can be I mean, butter is such a kind of everyday, like mundane thing, and yet making it is this like wondrous, amazing, like mind-blowing thing. And I think it also kind of gets me out of my like very like word-centric head for a moment, because especially in week 9, I'm thinking a lot about like the process of like making poems and accidentally making poems and making meaning, and something about contemplating actually like making butter to like be eaten is a nice contrast to that.
Yeah, it's a great recommendation. Thank you. And thank you, Jason, for making butter. Yeah, I mean, the thing about butter is that it is essentially form seeking. It's not solid in the way, it's just, what is butter actually? You know, when do we know that it's butter? And also, I think that this week we tend to think of this week as full of people, poets, artists, who are pretty serious. I mean, Jackson was a very serious person. And I think, I think Joan is as well. You would almost say severe in their devotion to the process. And it's good to remind ourselves that there is a high hilarity on the other side, dispositionally speaking. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain amount of Dadaist, post-Dadaist, or neo-Dadaist hijinks. And I think of Jason as very much a week 9 poet who tends toward the hijinks side, but is ultimately very serious about making butter. That's really cool. Kanar, followed by Gabby.
I'm going to join Davey actually with dropping leaflets, which I just adore and think is such a relevant poem to us. Post-election day, and also just all the time, I guess. So I too was kind of revisiting Joan Retallack today, and I wanted to quick share a sentence from Poetical Wager. The collection of essays. In the science's intelligibility is a sign that the current paradigm is still functioning. But part of what I love about Osmond's poem is how it really is courting unintelligibility through certain forms of repetition, through really putting strain on language, to kind of beckon for a real reckoning that is, something beyond what you get from a news outlet or from a president who says go out and buy stuff, right? To kind of recover from this national incident, right? So yeah, I just think it's such a fascinating poem, and it's one you can really pour a lot of attention to bring up attention into.
I'm gonna also sell Jason's poem, and I'm gonna pretend he's not in the room while I talk about it. The Room. I'm gonna say that what I think about making butter is like actually maybe gonna go a little bit against our week's principles, which is like I would almost rather like gather Jason's poems with like the work of like Lipsinka or like the sort of like, the kind of camp classics, because it's like that kind of overhearing and reframing that camp art does so well. Feels like the real kind of humor principle here. And so like Jason's not much of a proceduralist in most of his work. I mean, I feel like he's more of a sort of tender-hearted ironist. And I feel like what this poem shares with the other poems in that book, which is really good, plug, is tonal. And that tone feels like quite interested in like, there's something sort of like weirdly sexual about all the comments. There's something like, and also Jason reads it in his like typical sort of like slow, disconnected way, where it's like, then it becomes even more kind of like alienated and kind of like porny and sort of odd. And so, yeah, I like that poem.